Welcome into another episode of 89 with Steve Smith Sr. and James Palmer. Steve, you went back to your old stomping grounds in Baltimore with the Ravens, and we saw you. Steve Smith, Most Interesting Jobs, is always one of my favorite things to watch.
On NFL YouTube.
On NFL YouTube, and look, here he goes. You sent me a picture. There you are, full uniform, and I'm seeing all the social media that's coming out, and then I start seeing the comments. Have you looked at any of these comments?
No.
I mean, I'm going to run through some of them to you here. Like, when you're at work and you're trying to look busy, that was you up there on the.
Oh, are they trying to say that?
Or I like this one. When you give your younger cousin a second controller that isn't plugged in.
Definitely,
So
that's
Steve's
me.
up here, and
Oh,
I don't think the
definitely,
band's
that's me.
paying attention to that.
But see, here's the thing with the band thing. You saw I was up top. Then there was somebody at the bottom. People
looking at the
think
bottom.
that the person at the bottom was actually doing it. Is actually 3 or 4 conductors, because if you look at the football field, how long it is, the person up top is for the people in the back that can see. The person at the bottom is for the people in the front that they can see. And there were one on the right and one on the left. And so it's not one role and one conductor, it's multiples, because there's so many people that have to know the keys and what's going on.
So the only people that were confused were the people in the back, the people that had that their option was to look
No,
at you?
they told me that's what it is, because it's staying on beat, right? And then it's the
So you
stop.
just had to stay on rhythm.
So I got actually some training in drumming. Had
can
some
tell.
folks come here to the house twice a week because I knew there were going to be some haters in the building and in the chats that thought that I was just act like I
Always
was doing.
prepared.
No, your boy was getting trained.
That's phenomenal. Well, outside of you going out there and crushing it pregame, the Ravens went on the field and crushed it for 60 minutes against those Buffalo Bills. So we're going to get into our quick slants here, Steve, and the very first one is Buffalo.
Yeah.
Rolling. Josh Allen, front runner for the MVP through 3 weeks, and then they get steamrolled by the Ravens. Are they still contenders, or are they pretenders in the AFC right now after what you witnessed firsthand?
So what I witnessed firsthand, it is not their pretenders. What you witness is a very good football team by both ends. But what you saw was some deficiencies. The Buffalo Bills, just like everyone else, some less, some more than others, are dealing with injuries. But then they're also dealing with transition. You got salary caps. You got to pay some of your young guys that are actually playing well, that you drafted in the second and first round. And then also you got hit with some injury bugs. One of the biggest things that the Buffalo Bills have is their secondary is a little bit they're not as good as they used to be. They had some guys long in the tooth that they decided they didn't want to pay, like a Jordan Poyer, but he was a guy back there who can help you. He's almost like the quarterback. And so you can't replace him with a faster guy, because the faster guy just doesn't know where he's running. And so sometimes you give up experience to add athleticism, and there's a transitional period, and that's what we're experiencing. The biggest issue, though, in that game had to do with stopping the run. When you had 6 DBs back there, and yet you have a powerful running back like Derrick Henry, that's how you get the first play of the game, almost 80-something yards.
87 yards?
87 yards. Because why? Because your secondary is not what it used to be, and you can't have those type of defenders trying to tackle King Henry, that grown man.
Steve, can you believe what he's doing at his age, by the way? At his age, at his size, and you mentioned the number of DBs on the field. I know they don't want to tackle him, but they couldn't catch him on that run either.
Yeah. I guess the Allstate commercial he does is for real, huh? It's not just fun and games.
It's for real. It's for real. And listen, on the other side of the ball, obviously we've seen them play brilliantly, and I think it dates back to when Joe Brady took over midway point of the season last year. I remember covering, I think, their first 2 games that Joe actually was starting to run the offense. And we've seen a lot of positives on that side, right? There's fewer sacks. The ball's getting spread around really pretty much everywhere. He's under less pressure. That's Josh Allen. They're running the football at a higher clip than they were before Joe took over, and they're doing things offensively a little bit differently, right? A
Yeah.
little bit more unconventionally than some other places. They're going to need growth at the wide receiver spot. This was kind of one of those games I think that shows me like it's been great to see. You got Dalton Kincaid out there, you got James Cook, you have other players that don't play the receiver position that are first in a lot of their progressions. You know what I mean? And some of these plays that football's going to go to them right out of the gate, but also you might need to grow at the wide receiver spot as well. And maybe Keon Coleman grows into that. Do you see him taking a step this year at all? That might be one of the guys that they need to lean on to get to the level we're talking about. And it's hard to lean on rookie receivers sometimes.
Depends on what kind of rookie receiver he is.
Exactly.
And I believe when I watch Keon Coleman and I did my breakdowns on him during the draft, and a lot of people had a lot of things to say that I was a hater he was the best, he was the most athletic, and he was. He is in college. There is a transitional period right now in the NFL where there are the small little things and the small details that just are not there yet for him. Can he get there? Absolutely. He'll be there.
Yeah.
He won't be there tomorrow and yesterday the way you think he is. It's going to take some time. One of the biggest things that I believe that he struggles with is the separation. He can big boy you, but understand he's no longer he's not, well, everybody's taller than me, so it doesn't matter. He's not
But I get what you're saying.
he's not the big athletic guy anymore. He is the norm.
Yeah, everybody's an athlete.
Everybody's an athlete.
No
Everybody can dunk. Everybody can run. Everybody could, do all of those things. And so he has to just figure that out. But what's the craziest part about all of this that people are not paying attention to
Hit me.
is their number one wide receiver. One is Dalton Kincaid.
Yes.
That's their number one wide receiver. And then Knox. And then Shakir is their number one wide receiver. Now, one of the things I can tell you about this, when you watch Shakir and you watch him walk out of he's one of those dudes, when you watch him walk out of the locker room or you watch him walk out on the basketball court, man, he's a little bow-legged, a little knock-kneed. You watch him practice and you're like, let me tell you, he turns it on in the game. I love his game. I think he's underrated. I don't think he gets enough credit. His run after the catch is pretty darn good too. He uses that little spin move, stops on the dime. The way that they utilize him in the slot is really well. But everybody's talking about Coleman as the guy that's not possibly living up to the expectations. Well, he's living up to the expectations. He's a rookie and he's learning. Shakir, he's their top dog. He's the wide receiver that you need to fear and understand in the offense. When they need a play, it goes through him. And when his ankle, when he came up limping, you could see it affected him a little bit. But at the end of the day, that's where their offense goes.
Big time. I think these happen to good teams sometimes
absolutely.
during the season too. These type of games, and I think it shows us too that the Ravens obviously were in a position, Steve, after starting 0-2. It's like we need to get back on track. There was definitely that vibe from Baltimore.
A sense of urgency.
A sense of urgency, as they call it. Yes. How about let's stay in that same region, rub the country right there. Are the Commanders the favorite for the NFC East right now in your mind, Steve?
Let me get to my notes. Nobody saw this coming. Oh my gosh. Cliff Kingsbury, his razzle dazzle, that's not going to work. He's running the football.
Yeah.
And running the football, excellent. The first time they punted was the other night. They've had
this punter is just stealing money right now.
They had 18 straight drives without a punt prior to this game. Wow. It's just amazing. And then Brian Robinson, 4 yards a clip after contact. Second highest in the league behind Aaron Jones. That is remarkable, especially a year and a half ago. A year ago, this young man was shot.
I remember talking to him then.
Man, so this is crazy. I love what they're doing. And the quarterback is doing a great job. They have a lot of young wide receivers they're still trying to figure out. And just imagine that. They haven't even figured out exactly how this passing game is going to hit its highest, but yet they're still efficient. And Scary Terry hasn't even got started. That's one of my guys. I love to watch him. And Scary Terry, once he gets it figured out in this offense and Kingsbury knows exactly how he wants to use him, what he should use him in, what he shouldn't. And then, obviously Noah Brown, what he's been able to do the last couple of years. This can be a really dangerous team in the pass game. And then obviously running a football is not something that we assumed they would do efficiently, but they're doing it.
They are. I mean, Ohio State receivers, I mean, they just come into the league and dominate. No big deal. Listen, there's three things asking around that are really making this offense with Cliff Kingsbury go, Steve. First one is they play with a lot of tempo as an offense. That's working out really, really well for them. Two, exactly what you mentioned. When Brian Robinson runs the football well, the play action game, the pass play off of it, the run game, it allows Jaden Daniels to do more. The third aspect, I'm told, really is just then Jaden's ability to have that second play, right? That second play, if the first thing's taken away, that he can go out there and make something happen. I did a little recon talking to one of our guys here in Kurt Warner. I looked back in 2001, Kurt finished the last 3 games of the season completing 79% of his passes. He was just on a heater at the end of the 2001 season. So I was like, I'm going to call Kurt and I'm going to see what that was like to be in the zone, because Jaden Daniels is completing 82% of his passes to start the season through these 4 games. This is something we've never seen before. Not from a rookie, not to start a season. We've never seen a 4-game stretch like this completing the football ever in the history of the league. Kurt did it 79%. So I was like, Kurt, what was that like, right? Man, he's like, you are in the zone, man. I was like, it's like a 3-point shooter, right? Basket looks this big. He's like, you're in the zone, but also during that time, a lot of times your first progression, your first read is there, and it's pitch and catch, and you're seeing that first one right away. He said with Jaden, it's kind of both of those right now. And what he's seeing in Jaden, I thought really was interesting, Steve, where he said the biggest thing is he doesn't force the ball ever, and he never throws the ball into tight windows. But he also never throws the ball away because he has the ability to make that second play, whether it's with his legs or do something different with the football after the first read isn't there. He said what he's doing right now is so impressive. And I thought that was great insight from a guy who really kind of dissected things from the pocket. Jaden has another element to it after it, as well as he's playing inside the pocket. And then talking to people in Washington, I just got to say this. I just kind of called a couple people and was like, what do you think? And they're like, we got one, man. We definitely got one. And it's the 3 traits I was told are calmness, vision, and anticipation for Jaden Daniels. They just said those 3 things are off the charts for a young quarterback. And I think we've seen that. The vision and the anticipation, because those 2 are connected, right, Steve? If you see it, you gotta let it go.
Hey, see something, say something.
Exactly. Underdog is bringing you Boost-tober. New promos and special offerings each day of this month. Check the Underdog app and follow us online to stay up to date on all we've got brewing this month. How about a team that still is clicking, but it's not really going their way? And to be 4-0 and have it not going your way is a hard sentence to say, but that's the Kansas City Chiefs, Steve. And they lose another skill player. We broke down Rashee Rice and how big he is to this offense last week. We talked about him being the focal point, really, right now of this offense. And now he goes down with a knee injury that's supposed to most likely sideline him for the duration of this season. Right now, I do want to say this. I don't know when we see Rashee Rice again on a football field. Because say this injury takes him out for this season.
Yeah.
He has a court case in June.
Oh, dang.
For that multi-vehicle crash in Dallas. He's facing 1 count of aggravated assault, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, 6 counts of collision involving injury. The Chiefs, speaking with them, believe there will be some sort of suspension. The NFL is waiting for the legal process, like they often do, to play out prior to handing down any sort of suspension. And so I don't know when he's going to be on a football field.
Yeah.
That's the really wild part about this, with this injury and then with his legal issues this offseason. So how do they replace the guy who really was the focal point? You already have Hollywood Brown down, and you have Isaiah Pacheco down as well.
You do, and you saw early on they tried to push the ball to Sky Moore, and unfortunately, he just couldn't come down with that pass. But one of the things I just thought about, and I know the defense is going to have to step up and fill that void, and that's one of the things that's going to happen. Rashee Rice was 40% of all their receiving yards so far, 288 yards, 12 yards a catch, and 185 yards of yak. So we're not even
That's
talking
awesome.
about all of. I think it was last year he only had 44 first downs. He's already had a total of 15 thus far. So that just show you
Wow.
how
Yeah.
much of an
He's their
increase
chain mover.
of his play has really improved. Hollywood Brown, like you stated, is gone, and then you got Pacheco. He's down. No, there's no plans for when. Hey, let's figure out when three of our starters are out and will not return for the season. Oh, we got that game plan right here. Hold on, it's right here in the top cabinet.
Andy's got a lot of notes, man, but I
But
don't know
he
if you
don't
got notes
have
for
that
that.
one.
No. Yeah,
So
that's
it's
next
gonna be
level.
interesting. You know,
It
it
is.
puts more pressure on everyone. However, things will smooth out, and because right now it's important because it just happened. But after a while, the storm will start to settle down, and guys will show what they are capable of doing, what they're not capable of doing. And Andy Reid will do what Andy Reid does, which he will figure out which guy in which situation and scenario he will give the ball to, who he will not give the ball to. He will try to give them opportunities and allow them to show that they can do it or not.
That's pretty much it right there. And you know, the other guy who makes a lot of those decisions is Patrick Mahomes. He does not throw the ball to guys he doesn't trust. It really doesn't happen. And you saw that happen with Rashee last year. It just grew and grew and grew. And that trust factor and chemistry grew with the
You
two of
earn the
them.
trust.
You earn the trust. You earn it from the coach with the play calling. You earn it from the quarterback with seeing targets. And I think that's the other part of it. What kind of is interesting to me, it's almost like they're in the same spot they were last year. It was,
I
you're
don't
going to
think that.
rely, listen, you're going to rely on a really good defense.
No.
You were going to rely on a rookie wide receiver now, which was Rashee Rice a year ago, and now might have to be Xavier Worthy. And you still have Travis Kelce, but he's a year older. And you're going to have to find different ways to win games. That was the first year last year, and they won a Super Bowl doing it, that
Yeah.
they had to find different ways to win games. And Patrick Mahomes talking to people there, covering them throughout the postseason and most of the year, he was learning that, Steve, a punt might be all right. Like playing field position might be okay at times because we have one of the best defenses in football. And our offense, listen, it was very quick last year. I mean, they thought with all these pieces we're talking about, and a lot of them are gone, this was the speed that they haven't had in a couple of years. And now a lot of it's off the field. So how do they replace them? There are some guys on the roster. Juju came back, remember. He runs a lot of the similar stuff that Rashee Rice has.
No, he
And,
doesn't.
and he did that he doesn't? You don't think so? That underneath stuff, the intermediate stuff, they need that.
I like Juju.
Okay. I didn't say he does it the same. I just say you might have to put him in those roles.
You could put him in the roles, but then is the defense going to recognize him and respect that he will have that same impact? I don't think that Juju has that same impact. And you can watch. I went back and watched that game, and I was waiting for Juju to have that. And what they do, they went to Sky Moore. They force the ball to Sky Moore, give him those opportunities they would give to Rashee because of Juju's. He was never really fast. He was more quick.
No.
And now that he's older and, the knee issue, I just don't
True.
think he can stop and put his foot in the ground and change direction the same way that Rashee was doing it, the same way Sky Moore can do it. So I think that's the part that's going to be interesting.
Oh,
Now,
for sure.
can Worthy step in and be utilized a little bit that way? Yes, but then there's some things that Worthy is still working on.
Definitely.
The reason why I kind of like, when you said they're in the same position, last year was a little bit different because they knew they had to grow and develop these young guys.
Mm-hmm.
The difference this year is they saw the growth, they allowed the development, and then the guys like the Sky Moores who did not kind of step up in the way that they had expected, they've allowed his role to be reduced. And so reduced role going from a 4 to now all of a sudden a 2,
Yeah.
man, that's an added pressure that sometimes young guys who haven't had success early, I don't think they ever make that transition and live up to that unrealistic expectation.
Worthy was going to be a compliment
Correct.
to Hollywood Brown. Now he has to expedite and speed up that growth process. You mentioned Sky Moore. I would throw Noah Gray in there. I would see them going to more tight ends within their offense, because that's a guy that Patrick Mahomes trusts, is their second tight end as well.
Yeah.
And Andy Reid has it in his playbook to kind of change some of the personnel that they're going to be using as well. Whether they make a transaction for a receiver, they're in that three-peat mindset, Steve. Talking to some people there, Brett Veach is going to call about everything. He's one of the better GMs in football. He's going to see if somebody's available. They don't have a ton of money, but there could be a veteran receiver that could be available they'll look at. But I did hear this out of Kansas City, which was interesting. It is tough for a guy at the receiver position to just walk right in
Oh yeah,
and know the
that West
terminology
Coast offense.
and know
Ooh,
everything. It is tough, and it would
it
be
is.
tough in Kansas City. Now, if the guy has been there before, there's always a greater chance, right?
Yes.
That makes things a lot different. But they are really more under the mindset of usually when you acquire somebody midseason, which they've done before. They did it with Kadarius Toney, and
How'd that
it
work out?
didn't go exactly great, did it? Usually that first year too is even harder than the second year if you get a guy midseason that and making an impact right away. So keep an eye on them kicking the tires around. Okay, Steve, let's head into the dig route. Let's get down and dirty a little bit. Two really different topics, but I think both equally interesting. Let's get with down in Tampa. Bounce back game, clobber the Eagles after losing to the Denver Broncos. But the more important thing was what was going on in the booth with Tom Brady. Had a couple of comments for Baker Mayfield, the man who has replaced him in Tampa at the quarterback position. Just to sum things up, on an appearance on Casa de Club, Baker Mayfield talked about the difference in the building, Steve, since he's there compared to when Tom was there. He said, quote, the building was a little bit different with Tom in there. Obviously, playing-wise, Tom is different. He had everybody dialed in, high-strung environment, so I think everybody was pretty stressed out. They wanted me to come in, be myself, bring the joy back to football for guys who weren't having very much fun. Brady, during the broadcast, and this kind of sounded, I'm not going to lie, like he had this pretty much planned throughout the week, and this was just like, when do I get to throw this out there? This specific line.
Oh, hold
I
on,
thought
hold-
stressful.
hold on.
What, you don't think so? This was not off the cuff, Steve.
I know it wasn't off the cuff.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I mean, my man got to come back and say something, right?
100%. So
Okay,
I know
just
he was,
checking.
my point was he was thinking about it all week, and it was like, I'm going to find my time to
week.
throw this line in.
Every
Yeah.
hour.
I mean,
I know Tom well enough.
yeah, he was
Hey,
stewing
bro.
on it. He was stewing.
Oh, you gonna speak with your chest? Oh, okay.
Here he comes. And he came back with, I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. There was the mindset of a champion that I took to work every day. This wasn't daycare. If I wanted to have fun, I'd go to Disneyland with my kids. First off, thoughts on this situation initially, Steve?
Well, first of all, I'm biased
Go ahead.
in multiple ways. One, love Tom, went against Tom. I'm not really, and I can say this, I'm not really a huge Baker guy. Right?
That's been
I
documented.
just, there's some people that don't like Steve Smith or, something about him.
I don't know what those people are thinking, but yeah.
So I just kind of struggle when I see that, because I know Baker will say something like he did and then backtrack and then say that he was taken out of context. And that's what he said, it was taken out of context. And I think it was, when I saw it, I just kind of snickered, because then the next game didn't go well after he said that. And then now he plays well, and then Tom has to talk to him. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a guy, Tom Brady, is probably the best quarterback to ever play our game.
And probably one of the best competitors
Yes.
we've seen in professional sports.
And Baker does it his way. And congratulations, Baker. He's a hell of a football player. But I would say this. To say that about Tom, let's go back and see. There wasn't a lot of people that were talking great things about Baker in Cleveland. So to make it seem like you've invented football in a quarterback position,
You think you say that?
yeah, I'm just telling you how I feel.
Okay.
Like, oh, I'm bringing the fun back. Okay.
When Baker says they wanted me to come in and be myself and bring joy back to football, is this a message that was given to him by Todd Bowles and Jason Light? This is what we'd like you to come in and do? He wasn't in that locker room when guys were reportedly, I guess in his words, stressed out, and it was a high-strung environment. He wasn't there Was he told that this was the situation that was in that locker room? I mean, that's the part that I'm kind of interested in. What also happened later in the podcast was he was asked who was more responsible for the dynasty in New England, Belichick or Brady. Do you know what his answer was?
No, because I didn't watch the podcast.
I did. He said it was Brady. He said Tom's the one who went out there and did it. So Belichick deserves credit, but Tom deserves more of the credit for being the one that went out there and actually made the plays. So it's not like he was just dogging Brady throughout
I didn't
the
think,
entire.
I didn't really think he was dogging him.
Okay.
What I really think
Yeah.
is Baker just showed us Baker. That's all I think. I just think that sometimes Baker says little things. I've said it before. The one thing that kind of just, I'm like, I side-eye Baker has to do with the one thing I noticed. Whatever teams Baker is on, when they lose, it's we. When he wins, it's he.
Oh.
I just noticed that little key word. That's what he says. We have to get better. We didn't throw the 2 picks, bro. You did. We didn't identify the Mike linebacker wrongly. You did. So that's my thing with him. He's doing a great job in Tampa. He's got his,
Right.
he's got his money. Congratulations. I think though is what gets a little wonky is you have a quarterback who has been on a few teams and comes and says that about a player who's only been on 2 teams that has been hugely successful. It is perceived, it does look like, it does smell like, it's a straight, direct shot at Tom. And, bro, Tom ain't bothering you. But when you say stuff like that, people kind of look like, hey, bro, you know, if we go back and look at some of the other stuff that's happened in Cleveland, you didn't make that environment all, kumbaya. I mean, there were some receivers I know, even in COVID, that were giving me a call like, bro, I'm ready to get out of here. And I ain't going to say names that called my phone after a game
I know the names.
in COVID when I was working from the house on a Sunday, was like, bro, this dude is getting on my nerves. And I was like, And the name is not OBJ. So I'm going to just say that. I talked to a lot of wide receivers in the league. And I'm telling you, bro, there was conversations in Cleveland that I went out there and I heard some things and from some coaches that, bro, if we would say what Baker just did, it'll be a firestorm, bro. You just gotta be damn grateful for your opportunity and what you experienced.
Well, I also want to throw this in there too. How hard do you think it is to be the guy to follow Tom Brady? It's been difficult up there in New England.
Well, I'll say this because
Do you
somebody
think you need a?
somebody in the comments will probably say it. One, I've never won a Super Bowl. You're right. And I've never played quarterback, so I'm not sure. So I don't know.
I mean, just you're replacing the greatest player that most people believe the greatest player the league has seen. Well, we could just say this: the greatest winner the league has seen, right? And so to step into that, I think you do have to do it your way. I would think the general manager and the head coach are going to tell you to do it your way and maybe try to help you in that transition in some capacity as well. I remember having a conversation with Jason Light in the offseason about Baker.
Excellent. Jason Light is remarkable, bro. He does his stuff, man.
He really does, man. He is a great dude, and he is outstanding. And that's
he does
the other
his due diligence on everyone.
Everyone. And that we should put that out there. This was a good team before Tom got there, and because of Jason, it's been a good team after Tom left as well, with the way they've drafted players and the way that they've put that team together. He told me we took the identity of Baker this offseason. Now, I praised Steve's competitiveness. He believes he was really the straw that stirred the drink, he told me, for the way that they played and got to the postseason last year. So there are things to like about Baker, for sure. But I think there's a greater conversation of this, and I'd love your take, because you mentioned you did not win a Super Bowl. You played for what, 15 seasons? Is that what it is?
16.
16? Okay, yeah, I didn't pay attention to the last one. But I saw 15.
Me neither.
And they were great.
I was just there so I wouldn't get fined.
So, to make a hard left, would you have traded, or how did you go about, or your opinion on this environment that Baker's talking about? Is that worth a Super Bowl? Like not enjoying yourself, apparently, being high strung. Is a Super Bowl worth that? Would you want that environment, Steve, if that meant you got a ring?
Man, I was high strung on the losing team at times. So you asking the pot to talk about the kettle.
Yeah. Exactly. Is that worth it then? I guess let's say that. Like
I
you
just
did
think
all
it
of that.
depends on where you are in
Okay.
your career, where you are in life, how you see things. You know, what pair of glasses are you wearing? What lenses are you looking through? Are they rose colored? Are they amber? I mean, it just all really depends on what you're
Sure.
looking at. Everyone is at a different position, whether it's financially, mentally, how they're looking at their career, what personal goals are they really trying to get out of it? Does that team that you're looking to go to, how's their interview process? Right when you go, there's a lot of factors, man. Is the wide receiver or the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, or secondary coach? Do they play the same style of scheme that you play? It's a lot of factors that go into it.
For sure. But you mentioned you were stressed out on seasons you didn't even have, a successful season as a team. Do you look back at it at all and go, I wish I had more fun. I wish it was part Disneyland, or do you like the way you went about your business? Because I know the way you were.
Well, if I give me some fast passes, yeah. If I got unlimited fast passes, I'm at Disney
Yeah,
World all the time.
100%. Throw me on Tron. Let's go.
Um, I can't really answer for other people. I just know that the journey that I went through, if I remove it and change some things up, today I don't look at the game in the way I look at things with the same perspective or a different
Of course.
perspective. So I do believe the journey that I went on has allowed and helped me be able to go ahead and go back to Baltimore and dress up in the band suit and be comfortable because there
Yeah.
were times when I was in a band suit, even this weekend, bro, I was going as there's a few times I was in there and I was having this conversation. I'm like, bro, I'm dressed up in a band suit. Like, what are you doing? And then I also had this other conversation in my head. It was like, bro, you signed up for this, bro, enjoy it. How many people get to do what you get to do, Steve?
Great point.
I got to do it for 16 years. I retired 38, 5'9". I wasn't even supposed to be there. I was a third round pick. Man, I got to play a kid's game and got paid a king's ransom. Bro, enjoy something, damn it.
It's a great point. Steve, another thing that if I'm cool with you, you'll be cool with me. That would be, you would hope, Aaron Rodgers in his receiving corps. That was an ugly one to watch.
It was raining.
It was raining. It was definitely raining. But what? I'm not sure, but I'll tell you this: I'm standing in the press. Sitting in the press box in Houston, and everybody's looking at their computers, going, "Have you ever seen a guy have -7 passing yards for an entire half? This is unbelievable." That was Bo Nix, who was the other quarterback who ended up getting the win with 60 passing yards over Aaron Rodgers' squad. Is there panic? What's the vibe of that group that's working with Aaron Rodgers right now? Because there's some talent there, and there's some guys that have some familiarity with him as well. Will this get clicking, I guess, is the better question.
Well, thank goodness it's week 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll get clicking. Win? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. They want to run the football. They want to pass the football. Their offensive line has improved. I don't think it's improved as much as people would have hoped, but at the end of the day, there's just this unrealistic expectations that they're going to go undefeated, and they haven't gone undefeated. So now, people are jumping off the bandwagon and trying to find reasons why. It's a long season, thank goodness, and they can get it right because obviously one of the biggest issues that some of these teams have is the quarterback issue, right? Can a quarterback throw the ball? Can he, make good decisions? Well, they have that box checked off. They got 2 running
Yep.
backs. One of them had a bad day, Brees Hall, but
Yep.
that's gonna happen, right? Because the other team gets paid too, and the Broncos aren't. Their defense isn't a cakewalk.
No.
So it's just gonna be tough. The one thing though, I've told him, I don't know if I like this Garrett Wilson at number 5 though. I want him back in 17.
You
I'm
like him
not.
back in
I'm not
17?
digging. I'm not digging Garrett Wilson in 5. I told him too. His sleeves
Do you?
all. I don't.
You don't like 5.
I
I only like
don't.
5.
I like the 17. Garrett Wilson was fired.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson number
He really
5. It needs to grow
hasn't
on
caught
me.
with you yet. Okay. Okay. It needs to grow on you. Well, listen, I will say this about the group. You mentioned Garrett Wilson. Patrick Surtain was pretty much shadowing him like he's done with all these other number ones so far.
Patrick Surtain does not shadow anybody. He locks
He
them
has
down.
played. He what?
He locks them down. He doesn't shadow. He
He
locks them
does
down.
lock. Well, to your point, listen to this. Let's run through the list here because I got it. Patrick Surtain allowed 2 catches, 22 yards to Garrett Wilson when he was in coverage. 3 catches, 29 yards to DK Metcalf. 1 catch, 16 yards to George Pickens. 1 catch, 8 yards as the nearest defender to Mike Evans. You are right. He is locking people down. So the ball obviously needs to go elsewhere, other spots. We know Alan Lazard has a rapport, right, with Aaron Steve. I do think we're going to see Mike Williams kind of grow. He's
Yeah.
coming off the ACL, and this is early, and he hasn't had a whole lot of reps, you would think, with the way he's coming off the injury with Aaron. And I do think he's a guy that Aaron will like, and that chemistry will grow as he also comes back from this injury. So that's another thing. But the thing that surprises me, Steve, is like when they're in their 2-minute and they're not on the same page. And Aaron is at the line of scrimmage, control a lot,
Traffic
needs his
cop.
guys. Yeah, is that a hard quarterback to play with, I guess, from a receiver standpoint, if you are limited in time on task with him?
Well, one, it's not he's a hard quarterback to play with. It's just understanding you got to know what he's looking for,
That's my point. Yeah.
right? But the receiver also has to be comfortable with what's going on as well. And so it's a combination because you're thinking one thing and the quarterback's thinking another thing, and then you have your own muscle memory of the old offense you were in. This offense that Nathaniel Hackett has had is worded a little bit differently than some of the other offenses, so that could be an issue. It's just just kind of getting things going and getting comfortable.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it's
And
an Aaron issue or wide receiver issue between them. I just think it's the unrealistic expectations, and then you have the outlier, the elephant in the room, which is Mike Williams is one of those guys you could just throw the ball up in and catch it. Now the
100%.
unfortunate part is you got to jump up and catch the ball. You got to use that knee. It is, and how comfortable is he with that knee? And I don't know if where is he at, like 75%, 50%, but he's not 100%.
No, and they didn't think he'd be playing this early, Steve. They really didn't.
Yes. Like I was surprised, man. I was surprised, but that's just everybody's different.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see if it gets fixed. We'll see. Underdog is bringing you Boost-tober. New promos and special offerings each day of this month. Check the Underdog app and follow us online to stay up to date on all we've got brewing this month. Steve, we're going to close it out with our go route as I hit the road. Felt good to be back in a hotel, I'm not going to lie. Nothing against the family and Meg, but it was, hitting the road's always a positive thing for me. I like talking to people face to face. I like being there. I like seeing the game and working the locker room and digging deep and trying to get some storylines that nobody else has. I went down to Houston, saw those Texans get back on track, kind of, with a win over the winless Jaguars. CJ Stroud has a game-winning drive. I get to the locker room. It's a ghost town. It was the worst winning locker room I have covered in 15 years of the NFL. I mean, my head's on a swivel. I'm like, did they not just have a game-winning drive, score with seconds left, and win this game? And there's nobody to be found. Guys who are in there are not talking. I go up to Stephon Diggs. Hey, man, you want to chat? I'm not talking today. Okay. Laramie Tunsil talked for like 30 seconds. And I'm trying to dig going like, what am I missing something here? And then I kind of got to the bottom of it, making some calls and some texts. This is a team, Steve, that I think everybody had as what? A Super Bowl contender after CJ Stroud's unbelievable rookie season. Then they just get destroyed by the Vikings 2 weeks ago. Eke out, like I said, a win against the Jaguars. And essentially what I was told was, we cannot keep playing like this if we want to get to the places we believe we can get to. And my thought is something was said post-game by D'Amico Ryans to try to get yourself right because we have a game against Buffalo. Can you kind of, from a player's perspective, first take us inside this locker room and kind of what's that like when you've played on teams that have high expectations, and when you don't live up to them, what is kind of the mood? Because I think that's what's going on in Houston right now.
It's one of those things when you win, it's almost doom and gloom. And that's just like you said, that standard, that expectation. And so it's really the head coach is saying, hey, don't sit here and think just because we won that I don't see the glaring mistakes that we've had. Like you said, inked out a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Houston Texans are a more superior team than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their offense is more consistent. Their defense is more consistent. Their presence, the type of players that they have, what they did last year, the added new additions this year. And so there's just this like, hey, we really know what's going on. Winning solves everything. You hardly hear teams complain when they win. But internally, they're getting coached up, and the message is, hey, we haven't arrived yet. And so when you have that
Good
going
point.
on, it can be, like you said, a ghost town because they know on the outside we got a victory. But on the inside and during the week, that's where the business part is. And that's where the conversations and where guys are moving and shaking. Transactions are happening because maybe the backup is just okay, but we need somebody better just in case because our starters maybe has some issues going on injury-wise. So it's a lot of chess pieces being moved that we, the fans, at times don't always see, but the front office is preparing for the what if. And so that sometimes are the reasons why.
And the other thing, Steve, that changed, and I don't think have thought about this that much. Once a team plays well and a quarterback plays well, we're like, they're in a Super Bowl conversation. Let's go. This team has had no expectations for how many years? It has been, we are one of the worst franchises in football. Their goal over the last probably couple of years, because I've covered this team on a daily basis before I joined NFL Network. I've been in that building on a daily basis. When things got bad there, it was really, how do we change the culture and get out of one of the worst cultures in football and get back to some sort of winning football? Now, they accomplished so much in 1 year with what D'Amico Ryans was able to do, what CJ Stroud was able to do, the culture, 180. The quarterback play, unbelievable. One of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. Now, what do they have for the first time in I don't know how long? Expectations. And I think that has changed the way things are perceived in that locker room. Now, I do think the good thing is I had a long conversation during the week with Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator. Him and D'Amico Ryans both came from where? San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Where have there been unbelievable expectations for a number of years? San Francisco. I do think they have two people that know what dealing with expectations are like. And I'm kind of curious what the coaching job will be as they handle this kind of rough patch early. As you did get a win, but you're not playing the way you believe you can play. I think you have a young locker room that I'm not sure if they handle expectations the same way.
Well, of course not. They're not going to handle expectations the same way as the head coach and the offensive coordinator. First of all, D'Amico Ryans is doing a great job. Right?
Outstanding.
Just the way he's leading those young men and how and what he is in the locker room, on the sideline, it's just remarkable and it's great to see, man, just what he's doing. But one of the cool things is I did a little research on Bobby
Oh, let's
Slowick,
go.
and man, I'm really impressed with his history and understanding of football. Bobby Slowick started off as a quality control coach on the defensive side in the secondary. So understanding how a defense works, why and how, learning all the assignments, and then going to the offense, just having a well-rounded perspective that just is uncanny, and no one really sees that. You don't normally see a defensive guy switch over to the offense and be successful in the manner that he's been so successful with the type of players that he's had with a rookie quarterback, and to show even the next following year that it wasn't just a luck of the draw, right? And so I just think that that's one of those big things. The biggest question I think is going to happen, and when you talk about expectations, is how and when does the success of the team and those assistant coaches, what do they do when these other teams now who will be getting rid of coaches? I believe there's a few coaches that'll be going to get
Mhm.
fired this year. Is Bobby
Slowick was a name
Slowick
last
one of?
year.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
Bobby Slowick gonna be one of those guys? And then if he is, who replaces him? And does he fill in with the same kind of confidence, the same philosophies and expectations and rhythm and reading and processing and vision and the cadence of the offense? Does it mirror each other or does it change? And will that change be immediate or will it have a transitional period in which there may be a down year as well? So I just, that's one of the things I think about, because you hear about success
Hmm.
and you just know these coaches get success and they go off to all these other teams, and it doesn't always equal uh, for the new guy on his new team, and it doesn't mean the next guy stepping in for that former team is going to be
Hmm.
as good or better. Sometimes it
That's
looks
true.
worse.
Yeah, it does. And the other word I would use, because you described it kind of perfectly in the way this offense has grown in 1 year and built. The other one is, in talking to Slowick and talking to Stroud, it's trust. I mean, CJ trusts him immensely, and he trusts CJ to make a lot of calls on his own. CJ
Mm,
about what he wants to do with the football, in terms of where he wants to go. The trust factor between the two of them is outstanding. I mean, there's a lot of conversations on the sideline that go on between those two, to my understanding of, hey, I've seen this, I want to do this. Okay, let's do that. And Bobby will change, and go with what CJ's seeing. And you're right. If you don't want a quarterback at a young age to start over again, you don't want that. And so you mentioned the philosophy and the style. Bobby is a Shanahan tree guy. It was Mike Shanahan who actually had the idea to put him on the defensive side of the ball, in preparation as being an offensive coach, and obviously his relationship with Kyle. And I look at where they're going and where they want to be, and Bobby pointed this out to me, is that there's the Mike Shanahan way of the first 4 games, you find out who you are.
mm,
The next 4 games, you drill home that identity. And this is a 16-game season. The last 8, you make your season.
mm.
That's what you do. And so we're 4 games in Houston. Um, and I think the passing game, as he said to me, is not where it was at the end of last year. And that's fine. It's kind of under the model of what he's saying, right? Is you're finding your identity. There's new pieces. Joe Mixon joins this group. Stephon Diggs joins this group. You got a lot of mouths to feed on
Mm.
this offense, Steve. So let's get to that point, because I asked him about it, and he said it actually has not been a problem,
Yeah.
because you got Nico Collins, you have Tank Dell, you have Stephon Diggs, you have
Don't
Joe
Schultz.
Mixon. Um, Dalton Schultz, you mentioned, he said if there's one guy who's getting the short end of the stick, it's Dalton Schultz.
Yep.
That's what he said. He's like, he's the guy. He does everything right. You want to get him touches. You look on the call sheet, you go, I got to get Dalton something, but there's a lot of mouths to feed. Is this something that you're going to keep an eye on this season? That this is 4 games in, easier for Slowick now, said than done, than it will be towards the end of the year?
You got to get a guy plugged in now. If you don't, it can be an issue,
Great point.
right? Look at what's going on in Chicago. Cole Kmet balled last year. My man over there eating oodles and noodles, right? And Everett is out there getting a lot of touches, but he wasn't there last year. So it's kind of interesting how things can go. Guys aren't jealous of other players. What they get is a little antsy when they don't get their targets. And so sometimes when receivers, tight ends, or just pass catchers don't get their targets, it messes with them. right? Because, and what I mean by messes with them, you start to now cut your routes off short. Now you start watching a film and saying, how can I get my touches so I can get going? Because there is a flow. There is a
Yeah.
comfortability with yourself of like, okay, I need to see the defense. I need to get this first hit out of the way. Just all of that stuff.
Is that on the play caller, Steve? To like keep you in that flow? You know what I mean? I mean, there's calls on the sheet that are for you, right? There are calls on the sheet that are for everybody. Is it up to the play caller to keep you in that flow the best they can? They can try, obviously.
Yeah, it's up to the play caller, but it's also what is being told to you during the week, right? So like during the week, your plays, and they're gonna run those plays in practice because you want to see it on the film. You want to be coached up. You want the rhythm of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going through those plays in practice and we don't call them in a game, you don't try to count your plays, but you
Yeah.
do start counting your plays that were not called that we ran in practice. And so you start to sit in practice going, yeah, we ran this for the last 3 weeks and we haven't called one of them.
Mm.
We going,
Yeah.
and the coach will be like, oh, sitting in meetings, coach will be like, hey, Steve, here's your play. Here's your plays right here. And I would say sometimes, yeah, I believe it when I see it. Right. So, that's your little passive aggressive way of saying, yo, you did this to me
I
last
can
three
so see
weeks.
you. I can see you saying that on the move.
Right.
Just
Sitting in the meeting.
walking right by. Yeah.
All right. I'll be ready. That's the job, right? The general manager is generally managing, but what a general manager really is, he's a fireman. His goal is to put out these fires and to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, players get paid a contract. They know what they're getting for those paid for those 17 weeks. You know what a player does not think about when he's running routes? I didn't catch this pass. They didn't give me they didn't give me my 10 targets this game, but I made this week, so I'm good. No, man. You get paid pigskin on Sunday, and that's what guys really look at. They go, hey, they don't say, oh, I caught this much money. They go, I want these targets because that's what I'm used to. Because when you have down years and they come to you in the offseason and say, hey, we want to restructure.
Steve, we're looking here at the numbers.
Yeah, your numbers are down. You're like, oh, yeah, my numbers are down. That's because our offensive line couldn't block it, which means the deep developing plays that you had me going on, I wasn't there. You can't say that to the general manager. He's going, nope, numbers down.
Yep.
APY
Your
is
numbers down.
this.
Yes. So we're dropping numbers.
You need to, you want to move?
You want to move the family, Steve? Okay, I got it. But that is something that we're seeing. And that this was an explosive offense a year ago in Houston. I mean, explosive. Deep ball was outstanding. It has not been there as much so far. I don't think that's as much asking around on Stroud. It's offensive line has had its issues penalty wise. I thought being there Sunday, Steve Stroud was outstanding, moving within the pocket and keeping his eyes downfield as he was dodging defenders left and right. They didn't have Tank Dell out there. It was kind of the two-headed monster in the receiving core. And I'm just going to give you your flowers here before we say goodbye. Who called like, hey, I think Nico Collins is one of the best receivers in the league? Who said that? Was it Steve Smith on this show? And I just watched Nico Collins down there go for $150 again. And leading the NFL in receiving right now. The man is outstanding. And getting targets to him are a necessity. That's why I brought it up, because Tank Dell is what? Is he the third option, Steve? Is he the best third option in football? If he is? Because you also have Stephon Diggs. I mean, it's a good problem, but a stressful problem to have, I would say, if you're Bobby Slowick.
Well, I'll tell you a guy just randomly. I was just watching the games. I think it's Dutch, number 4 for Arizona Cardinals. He's kind of impressed me a little bit.
Okay.
Or Dortch.
Teaser right there. Dortch?
Yeah. I was watching him. I was like, little jitterbug. So I got to do some more research on him. Liked him.
Okay.
Just popped. Because you got
We'll end
Michael
on a
Wilson. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., but number 4, he's starting to wiggle his way. He's starting to sneak up on some people, man. Got some big shots over the cross in the middle, held on to the football. Like his game. Like it.
We'll dive deeper next week. How about that?
If we have to, all right.
See you next week, Steve.
All right.